Hi everyone, I'm Madeline, and I will be responding in this video to debate number 3, which was the Myanmar debate. I'll be responding to the debate as a whole. So before I begin, I want to say that in all the videos I watched, everyone seemed to have an excellent knowledge of the issue and really came at the debate with good intentions. So I applaud everyone who originally posted for this debate. Since this is a response, I'm going to skip the background information on this issue and dive straight into the different sides and arguments. There were some commonalities between both sides, and that was primarily that there should be intervention in some form. The major debate came down not to whether Myanmar should be able to continue in its current state of affairs. Everyone agreed that something needs to be done, but rather military intervention became the focus of the debate. So let's start with side A, which was that there should be military action taken in Myanmar. And generally, everyone arguing this stance heavily leaned on defining the actions of the military in Myanmar as genocide, which I agree with. They used the current state of things to argue that something needs to be done to intervene immediately or as soon as possible. They really emphasized that these aren't just concerning events that could culminate to genocide. The genocide has already happened and something needs to be done. There was also a heavy emphasis on the need for accountability, which I think is crucial to this argument. Side B is arguing that there should not be military action. I was only able to find one video that addressed this side of the debate, so awesome job to N. Kim, I hope I pronounced that right, for taking on the unpopular side, and I apologize if I missed anyone else's videos. And this side, they still acknowledge the need for intervention. They just focused on more nonviolent means like negotiations, sanctions, withdrawing aid, and debt forgiveness were some of the major ones. And there was an emphasis that military action doesn't always produce the desired effect. And while I agree with that last point, I tend to side more with those arguing side A, although not entirely. I do believe that nonviolent intervention should be always the first step. But there are some problems with that viewpoint in this particular situation. The first problem is that the government in Myanmar has been highly uncooperative. They have pushed the UN out. They deny all allegations and accuse everyone who accuses them of genocide or acts of genocide as having an agenda against them. And this obviously makes negotiations very difficult. In addition, some negotiations have already taken place, and as one person noted in their video, an agreement was actually reached between Myanmar, the UN, and other countries to start reintegrating refugees back into Myanmar. And this was largely unsuccessful, first of all, because a lot of refugees have nowhere to return to. Their homes have been destroyed. And also, this did not guarantee citizenship for the Rohingya people and thus offer no future protection against further ethnic violence. So negotiations have already occurred to some extent. The government not cooperating makes further negotiations very tricky, and the negotiations that have happened have already failed. The second problem is that the economic sanctions and policy changes have already been tried as well. The U.S. has implemented sanctions against Myanmar, but Myanmar is heavily supported by both China and Japan, who have made it clear that they will continue to support them, as one person mentioned in their video. So they have sort of a safety net against sanctions and withholding of aid. They may eventually feel the effects of economic policies, but they can and have been able to, in many ways, hold up under economic pressure. And again, the fact that genocide has already taken place really emphasizes the need for some sort of action more immediately rather than waiting for them to crack under economic pressure. The third problem is the need for accountability. At this point, like I've said many times, the genocide has already occurred. If there were just concerning events that did not yet constitute genocide or crimes against humanity, these slower acting, less direct interventions would be the best first response. But simply pressuring Myanmar to stop what it's doing is not enough anymore. Not only will it take too long, but there is a need to hold people responsible and have accountability for crimes against humanity in the international community. That's why I think at this point that military action is necessary, agreeing with side A. However, I don't think that the US should specifically intervene. Some people address this issue in their videos and others didn't discuss it specifically. But I think it's important to note that military intervention does not inherently equal war. What we need in this situation is some sort of force to act like the police do. When the police have gathered enough evidence that a crime has occurred, as the UN has by visiting refugee camps, and collecting these videos that people have smuggled out and firsthand accounts. So when police gather evidence like that, they then go in and make sure that people are held accountable, and we need a situation sort of like that. This is why I'm cautioning against US specific involvement. I think it's dangerous for any one country to take on the role of the international police, if you will, which is why I think that intergovernment organizations like the UN have a major role to play here. The US can definitely still play a role, and I think our power and influence would be somewhat beneficial, but I think it's necessary to caution against them spearheading any military intervention. The UN is also able to hold the tribunals and trials necessary to hold the people responsible for genocide and crimes against humanity accountable, which is a major need in this situation. So in conclusion, I agree with side B that military intervention is far from the ideal scenario. However, I have to generally agree more with side A that it is necessary at the point that we are currently at for military intervention to occur. Thank you.